Week 15 of the fantasy football season. Here's the top 12 defense DST units. I'm ranking this week number 1, the Baltimore Ravens. I know their defense hasn't been all that great this season. They've had some games where they've given up a lot of points, but this week a great matchup at the New York Giants. And we don't know if it's going to be Drew Lock at quarterback or Tommy DeVito this week, where Lock was banged up in last week's loss at the New Orleans Saints. So the Ravens, I think they could get to whoever the quarterback is a few times. And this Giant O-line, one of the worst offensive lines in the league. And also, I think they could create a few turnovers. So Baltimore coming off a bye weekend a little bit healthier. And after a bad loss versus the Philadelphia Eagles before the bye, I think this defense goes out there and proves a point and has a good ball game. Number 2, the Denver Broncos. So this Bronco DST, one of the best units in the league. I know before the bye week versus Cleveland, they gave up a lot of points, but also they had 2 pick sixes and 3 interceptions total in that ball game. So this week with a great matchup, the Indianapolis Colts, I think they go out there, have a good ball game as this Denver Bronco team. They could get to the quarterback. Obviously, they could create turnovers. And Anthony Richardson, it just hasn't been a good second season for him, where he's taken a lot of big hits and he's made mistakes turning the football over. Number 3, the Kansas City Chiefs, so a good matchup at the Cleveland Browns. We know Jameis Winston, he's the ultimate gunslinger, and he's going to throw touchdowns, and he also is going to give up pick sixes as well. And we saw it a few weeks ago, like I said, at the Denver Broncos. So I think this could be a similar type of game script where the Browns actually do put some points on the board, but also Jameis Winston gives a few points back, or at least takes a few sacks and turns the football over. So this Chief defense has been better than their offense this season. And this week going to the dog pound in Cleveland, I think the defense gets a few sacks on Winston and creates a few turnovers and holds them in that mid-teens, low 20 range. Number 4, Minnesota Vikings. So this Viking DST, one of the best units in the league. But this week a matchup versus the Bears where anything goes in these type of division ball games. And we saw it a few weeks ago where this Bear team was down a lot and they forced overtime and lost 30-27 with Chicago in that game. So Minnesota, they get to the quarterback. They've had a couple pick sixes this season. But Caleb Williams, it's one thing I would give him of late. He's not turning the football over, but he is taking a lot of sacks. And this Bear team isn't putting up a lot of points. So this week, I think Minnesota, it'll be a mid-scoring game, and they'll get a few sacks a minimum. Number 5, the Washington Commanders. So this Commander DST, they're getting a little bit healthy. They're coming off a bye week. And this week, a great matchup at the New Orleans Saints, where they're depleted offensively. We don't know if it's going to be Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler as the starting quarterback, but whoever it is, they're going to be in for a long day. Obviously, with no Chris Olave, obviously Rashid Shaheed, he's out for the season, and they're down to pretty much Alvin Kamara, Valdez-Scantling, and Jawan Johnson is their top 3 options in this offense for New Orleans. I think Washington goes a streaming option, goes out there, has a good ball game. Number 6, the New York Jets. So this New York Jet defense, they've been a total bust, no doubt about it this season. This week, though, they're a great option at the Jacksonville Jaguars that can't move the football. They got a depleted offensive line. Mac Jones in there, quarterback Lawrence out for the season, Christian Kirk out for the season, Gabe Davis out for the season. So they're down to pretty much just Brian Thomas Jr., Evan Ingram in the passing game, and Tank Bigsby, who's been okay, over Etienne in the backfield. But I think this Jet defense this week has one of their better games. Like I said, with Mac Jones at quarterback, we know he's been a failed first-round pick with the Patriots, and this season he hasn't looked any better with Jacksonville. Number 7, the Philadelphia Eagles. So this Eagle DST, one of the best units in the league. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are coming to town, where their offense has definitely improved this season. But the thing is, George Pickens, it's looking unlikely he's going to play their deep ball threat and their number 1 wide receiver. I know they got Najee Harris. I know they got Pat Freiermuth. But this Eagle defense, when they lock in, they've shut down some decent offenses or held them back this season. We even saw it a few weeks ago versus the Ravens, where that offense, before that last garbage time touchdown, only had 14 points in that game. So Philadelphia, they get to the quarterback, they create turnovers, and when you got a lockdown corner like Mitchell, you're not going to put a lot of points on the board as well. Number 8, Arizona Cardinals. So the Cardinals are 1-week DST streaming option. They got the Patriots coming to town. We know their offense don't really have a true number 1 player in the passing game. It's either Douglas or Hunter Henry. In the backfield, the Ramondre Stevenson and Gibson has been mid to below average this season, I think. So this Arizona Cardinal defense, for the most part, the last month of the season, they've been playing well. I know last week was a down game, no doubt about it, versus a great Seattle Seahawk offense. And Zach Charbonnet, JSN had the big ball game for them. But I believe this week, versus an offense that don't move the football well and doesn't score a lot of touchdowns, the Cardinals are a decent option. Number 9, the Cincinnati Bengals, so another streaming option. One of the worst defenses in the league, obviously, is Cincinnati. And if this defense was just mediocre, my Bengal record would be 7-6 or 8-5 the way they put points on the board. So this week at Tennessee, a team that just can't move the football, lost 10-6 to the Jaguars in one of the worst games you'll see all season long and the lowest scoring game. I think Cincinnati's defense could go out there as a streaming option and have a decent performance. Number 10, the Atlanta Falcons. So this Falcon DST, another streaming option. And you just go off the matchups. This week it's a matchup with the Raiders with Desmond Ridder, their former quarterback, who is one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league in many seasons, is out there for this Vegas Raider team, where I think they could get pressure on him early and often. We know he's been a turnover machine, as well as Desmond Ridder. And this Falcon team, like I said, is a 1-week use only. And even if it's Aiden O'Connell, I think they could go into Las Vegas and put up some points. Even though I know Vegas, they have some good weapons, obviously, in Jacoby Myers. And in my opinion, the best tight end in the league right now, Brock Bowers. But I still believe the Falcons, even with those two playmakers, go out there, have a top 10 performance, 11 the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this week, a tough matchup for the Steelers team. But we know Philadelphia at times, they turn the football over, and they have trouble as well at times of scoring touchdowns. So this week in Philly, it could go each one way, where I think it's either a blowout for Philly or it's a tough, grinded out type of performance, more to Pittsburgh Steelers style of play. So this week, I think Pittsburgh Steelers, they could get a few turnovers on Jalen Hurts. We know at times he holds on to the football long as well, where they could get a few sacks and maybe force a fumble. So I believe this week here, Pittsburgh, even in the tough matchup, is still a top 12 option. In the 12th and final defense, DST, I'm ranking is the Dallas Cowboys. I know their defense hasn't been great at all this season, but this week I'm going off matchup and another streaming option at the Panthers, where their offense has definitely improved over the last few weeks, but still they're turning the football over a little bit. Bryce Young's still taking some sacks, and I think this Dallas Cowboy team, after blowing that game the way they did last week on the block kick and then trying to recover it for whatever reason and losing the football, it's a sour taste, and especially Micah Parsons isn't happy about it. So this week I think they could surprise in this ball game and that game at Carolina, even though we know they lost one of their better defenders with a torn up knee and overshown. So that's the top 12 defense DST units I'm ranking for week 15 of the fantasy football season.